Hello, Radiant Pearl and Fearless Creator. I'm so excited to share with you a little bit behind the scenes as I record this podcast episode and just showing you all the inner workings of putting it together. First and foremost, we're going to go right into the recording. I am utilizing simultaneously Ecamm Live for my video production right now, along with the Rodecaster Pro, which is set up with my mic, as you see here, that is branded with the mic flag. So all of my tools that I'm utilizing, I do have in my toolkit that you have access to as a fearless creator. And I'll also be linking out in the description and in the show notes for you to be able to access, complimentary and gifted to you. So the first thing I'm doing, I am going to pull up the program that I'm using to edit my podcast episode to record while I'm recording here by video. And what I'm using is Adobe Audition. So I've simply opened that up, and I do have a template that I use for my Adobe Audition to make it podcast ready and sound polished. And so right now I just created the multi-track option when I opened up this program, and then I created new audio file. So this new audio file is going to be my intro, and I'm going to go ahead and begin recording. Bear in mind, I have my actual podcast episode outlined and written out in a Google Doc. This is also a resource, a template that I provide for Fearless Creator Mastermind members who are producing their podcast and producing content and doing so fearlessly and simply. All right, so I'm going to hit the record button, and you're going to be able to watch as I produce this particular episode. In this episode of Radiant Pearl Living RPA Live and the Fearless Creator podcast, I want to preface this episode by saying this was inspired by one of my students and mastermind members who continues to show up and serve the people she is assigned to through her foundation and community as a doctor and leader. I am excited for you to get to know more about her in an upcoming episode. In this episode, the idea of your story matters. Writing well and purposely pursuing his presence for leading, direction, and confirmation matters. The radiance will surely follow when you know you're operating fearlessly in the season God has placed you in, and I dare say, designed you for. You were made for this moment. As women, we have so many passions, so many dreams, desires, and callings. Whether you are a wonderful lady in waiting, a beloved wife, a maturing mother, a darling daughter, a sweet sister, whatever you ascribe to be in this season, you were made for this. How are you embracing this role of yours? I'm grateful to say I'm embracing these many roles God has seen fit to bestow upon me with wonder and in awe. Some of you know I've been able to gain a new role recently, and it has taken a while waiting and doing and fulfilling what was led for me to fulfill by God during those seasons. And now this new season is here. My eyes have been open to so many different facets of being and simply enjoying the power of the pause that has been made possible. And we're going to go through in this episode the power of the pause. Why is the pause so powerful? And that will be the very first question that I will answer. So let's go right into hearing the intro, and then we'll go right into the content. All right, so instead of just talking about it and sharing with you what I'm doing, I decided I'm going to demonstrate what I'm doing. So I created a quick scene here so that I can show you behind the scenes. And so I'm just switching over to that scene that I quickly created as I got the idea here to show you what I am talking about. So I took the time to record the actual intro. So I'm going to edit as I create. So it'll be a lot easier for the workflow. So right now I am simply, if you listen, I don't think you can hear it on your end. You may be able to, but there's static noise right now, right? So right now, what you heard is the actual audio background. So that background noise I'm going to remove, which is like it picks up the sound of the computer. So simply, I am selecting that, and then I'm going to the option here on my computer that is going to say noise effects and then noise reduction restoration. So you have to make sure that you hit stop recording so that this option becomes available for you to capture the noise print. So I just captured that. This pops up, press OK. And then we are going to select all, and then we go back to effects, noise reduction restoration, and we select under capture noise print, noise reduction process. All right, you can play around with this, but I like to just leave it as it is and press apply. Wonderful. Now you see, if you go closer, I'm just using the scroll on my mouse to go closer. And this allows me to see even closer. Right now, this portion in the beginning doesn't have the graininess, and you'll hear it when you're producing and listening as I'm doing. It's complete silence now. You don't hear the fan of the computer, and you don't hear the background noise. So that's why you always want to leave just a little bit in the beginning and the end of just background noise so you can edit it and make it very clean. So I'm just going to delete this front part so it can start right away and just quickly listen to it. All right, so usually I listen to the entire thing, and sometimes I will do 2 or 3 iterations of recording, but since I'm doing this live, I'm going to leave it mistake and all because I did fumble just a little bit over 2 or 3 words in the beginning. And I sometimes, the perfectionist in me tries to come out, but I'm just going to, it wasn't as bad. So I'm just going to leave it as it is, and you will hear that finished product in the production. All right, so I'm going to delete this ending as well. We don't need that much space. And then I'm going to go up and save. Once again, make sure you've stopped the recording there, and then you're just going to save, and it brings up that's what I titled this particular file, which is a simple audio file. And now it's over to the left here, and I can go back to the session since this is my intro, and I'm going to make that session, this particular file recording, I'm just going to click it and I'm going to drag it down here as my track 1. All right. Right now, if I play it in my multi-file setup, multi-track setup, it sounds fine, but I'm going to actually click that and I'm going to select the preset for dialogue and podcast voice. All right, so that was set up previously to make it very easy for kind of top-notch studio sounding quality. All right, so now you can probably hear the difference, which you will hear in the finished product. So it just has a lot more richer sound, as though I recorded this in a studio, which I'm doing in my home office studio. All right, so now that this intro is complete, we are going to go over past that, and I'm going to include my announcer. So I have a recording of my announcer, which is one, my brother in Christ, who I had do the intro for all of my episodes. And that is just simply a raw file, a waveform file. It can be an MP3 file. And I have that saved. So I'm going to import that, import file. It's going to show up to the left once I have it. And these show some of the imported files from before. But I'm going to go over to what I have in my passport here. This is something that I use to save my actual files outside of my computer, so I can keep my hard drive pretty clean and clear and not get it bogged down by all the files. All right, so we're just waiting for that to show up. And I may just have to quickly scroll through just to save time if it's not pulling up. I do have quite a number of files here. And I'm not seeing it off the bat, but here we go. There it is. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and open that. Now it's available to the left right here. So I'm just going to drag it. I know exactly where I want to put it. I'm going to make that track 2 right there. All right, so the track 2 is where I will put like my music and other people versus my voice. And I'll make track 1 be my voice. So just keep it simple, have 2 areas, 2 different tracks, so that we can maneuver and have even music going while I'm speaking in some parts of this production of the podcast. All right, so right after I say what I say, there we go. All right, so that's another track. So I am going to use 3 tracks because usually when I have him speaking, I like to play my Fearless music. So my original I Am Fearless track, I'm going to add that as well. So I'm going to simply go to import again, file, and I'm just going to search for I Am Fearless. All right, so there goes my I Am Fearless instrumental. So if it doesn't allow you to select it because I have so many files, one of the things that I'll do is just search for it in advance. And since I'm doing this live, I do want to just make it very quick and easy. And this is in another window, so you're not exactly seeing what I'm doing right now because I'm only sharing with you what's happening in my Adobe Audition, okay? So I'm just going right now to my file, and that is my desktop, and I'm going to search for I Am Fearless. All right, and there goes a few of my files there. So once again, I'm going to select that I Am Fearless instrumental, and I am going to have it go over into my passport so that it will be hopefully easier to access right there when it comes to production and having the files available to me rather than it going to the iCloud and needing to be downloaded each time, which is what I do from my computer to save space. All right, so I've done that. We're going to go ahead now and click back Adobe Audition and import. All right, I Am Fearless. All right, and if it's not finding it directly through the passport, I'll have to scroll again. I don't know why it doesn't do that for, it does it fine for the computer, but for whatever reason, it may be thinking a lot. So I'm just looking for I Am Fearless. I could also search by doing kind so that it would find it that way. And I do have a lot of files, as you can see. I will be doing my usual seasonal editing digitally so that it'll be a lot easier for me to find exactly what I'm looking for in folders, and that will make this a lot quicker. So it's really at the bottom here, right? So that's the I Am Fearless instrumental, and it's probably still loading there. So I'm just going to select it, and it's going to load in my actual Adobe Audition. So there it is now, and I'm going to add that right under. And I'm going to start it from a little bit after I've been talking so that it will, people will kind of know that, hey, that's coming up. Now the intro is coming up, and it just lets those who are listening anticipate what's next, and that keeps things exciting. All right, so I don't need that much of my instrumental, so I'm simply going to pull that all the way to end. And Adobe Audition makes it easy. It shows you the line right there of where it would end from. So let's make sure that this is actually playing as a background, because if you play it right now, it's going to be too loud, and it could drown out the speaking that's happening. So go to the right, essential sound. The instrumental is what I've selected, and we're going to go to music, and we're going to make it balanced background music. So you're going to see how it decreases it quite a bit. And we are going to play, see what it sounds like. All right, so now he's introduced me. I'm going to go ahead and record now. All right, make that a little bit specific to what we're seeing there. So right now, it was right at the end. We're going to go right, he said, right into the host and my name. So I'm going to go back to file, and I'm going to create new, and then we're going to just make this a simple audio file. I'm going to give it a title, and I'm going to just make it my full session. I just do 3 parts: intro, the full meat of the session that I have in my actual Google Docs file, and then I'm going to go ahead and do the outro. Okay, so I'm going to name this episode Power of the Pause Full. All right, so that's the meat, right? So we just created that. Let me put a number based on what I've numbered this as. All right, and now we have this simple audio file that we're going to create. All right, I like to, refresh myself here before I start recording again. So I'm going to pause this for a moment. All right, so before I hit the record button, I am going to make sure my script, outline, and everything that I've put together prior is also up and ready for access. Of course, I'm going to record the actual background noise, and I'll speak a little bit more about what I did during this entire time, because I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to go straight through completing this entire podcast episode. And of course, I'll stop before I do the outro. So I'm going to hit the record button now. What makes pausing so powerful? Forbes says it's tough to be creative when you never slow down. In a world where external demands and a cacophony of noise bombard us, taking the time to turn inward and think deeply is a must for creativity. Research has shown that we allow our minds to wander when idle, and that daydreaming makes us more creative, better at problem solving, and better at coming up with innovative ideas. As a devoted believer, I can say firsthand that there is a reason why sabbaticals are mandatory for people in certain positions of ministry. We know burnout is real, especially when dealing with people, hurting people, misunderstood people, and maturing people. Why pause on your own terms? You don't want pausing to be a byproduct of something out of your control, or at a time when you really should be progressing and moving forward. It is understandable that life throws us curveballs, but there is something to be said when taking preventive measures by pausing on your own accord. I shared transparently recently that I had to take a pause from doing some things I absolutely love doing and am called to do, like singing publicly and traveling to speak at conferences, because God knew I needed to prepare for the sweetest little gift He would send my husband and I. Although we desired this precious little gift in the season now of our lives, it was not until I had to take a pause did God quickly work a miracle in my life because I would have the time to dedicate to healing and preparing for what was to come. Do not despise the season of pausing, because I can truly say pausing was the much needed power to focus, renew, and be even more invigorated for the assignment God had for us to fulfill in the now. What may seem like just 9 months of preparation and carrying the promise was just a small part of the journey of getting here. And God knew all that it would take to be ready, to get ready. More on this later. But what I can boldly say right now is that God is concerned about every little detail of your life. Don't you know that? If you don't, I'm here to remind you of this fact. Ready to write well? Learn more on planning and creating fearlessly with a special focus on how to get published. You'll want to check this out and all of our episode and resources to help you on your journey to writing well, to tell your story. In this episode, you are encouraged to consider the importance of pausing and pursuing God's presence as a fearless creator, purposely pursuing the Lord's presence for leading, direction, and confirmation matters. The radiance will surely follow when you know you are operating fearlessly in the season God has placed you in, and I dare say designed you for. You were made for this moment. Now back to the program. Take a pause before you fearlessly create. The world we live in is so fast paced and hectic that we often forget to pause, take a moment to breathe, and reflect upon our lives and the blessings we have. The power of the pause is essential in leading a peaceful, enriched, and fulfilling life. In our busy lives, we seldom stop and take a moment for ourselves. We're constantly on the move, running from one appointment to another, checking our phones, and scrolling social media. We're bombarded by information and distractions, and we become disconnected from our inner selves, the people around us, and God. It is during these busy moments that we need to remind ourselves of the power of the pause. Pausing takes discipline, but it can benefit us greatly in several ways. Firstly, it can help us to avoid making rash decisions. When we take a moment to pause, we can evaluate our thoughts and feelings and make more informed decisions. Secondly, it allows us to recognize our blessings and be grateful for them. When we pause to appreciate the good things in our lives, we experience more joy and contentment. Lastly, it enables us to connect with God. When we pause to pray, read the Bible, or meditate, we become more attuned to God's will for our lives. Jesus constantly paused during his time on earth. He would often retreat to pray alone or spend time with his disciples. In Mark 6, verse 31 to 32, Jesus said to his disciples, "Come with me, buy yourselves to a quiet place and get some rest." He recognized the importance of rest and taking a break from the world. The Bible teaches us the importance of taking breaks and resting. Psalm 46 verse 10 reminds us to be still and know that I am God. When we pause, we become still and connect with him. Isaiah 40 verse 31 says, "But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on eagles. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint." When we pause and focus on God, we renew our strength to face the challenges of life. In conclusion, the power of the pause is about taking the time to appreciate the present moment, connect with our loved ones and God, and appreciate the blessings we have. It is slowing down and taking the time to reflect. evaluate, and make informed decisions. It takes discipline, but it is essential to leading a peaceful, enriched, and fulfilling life. Let us take time to pause every day, appreciate the good things in our lives, and renew our strength in God. This is just part one of a 3-day devotional I'm excited to share with you. On this glorious day, I just wanted to pop into your earbuds or into your screen and visual. On this glorious day, I just wanted to pop into your earbuds or on your screen. And for those who are watching our most recently released YouTube video on my channel, I wanted you to see and behold just how intentional and concerned our Savior is about the details of our lives and, of course, our stories that we look to share with the world. We're connected for a purpose, and I'm grateful you're here, tuned in, and we are on this fearless and absolutely radiant journey together. Have you ever thought about your personal story and why it matters? We will continue to discuss the power of your personal story, prayer, journaling, and community through discussions in our Facebook group, through our summits, connect sessions, and as we meet continually in our exclusive community weekly to provide support and share encouraging stories with ample resources through our club. You'll want to make sure you have a designated space to record and get clear on your personal story. If you would like more help with this and have a story to share when it comes to your home, learn more about the opportunity we're bringing to you to be featured as a co-author in our upcoming book, and have your story shared in audio format as well in an upcoming series to be released on our podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by the Fearless Creator and the Radiant Pearl Circle, prepared strategically and intentionally with a collection of resources, planning tools in a variety of ways. There truly is something for everyone, and our community is here to help you operate in your calling with excellence. You will have access to a plethora of training, products, along with the Fearless Creator Summit we host each spring and fall, the Radiant Pearl Prayer Journal package, created to equip you for faith-filled moments, recorded intentionally each day through prayer, worship, journaling, and Bible study. And now we have the sample pack available to you for free, so you can explore planning and journaling digitally this month and beyond. Learn more at thefearlesscreator.com/sample pack, or check out the circle at thefearlesscreator.com/circle. Everything we discuss in this episode, including the show notes, can be found at radiantpearlliving.com, the power of the pause. All right, so sometimes you need to pause, which I literally just did, to refresh yourself, right? Because you want to end on a high note. And so you would have thought maybe I already did the outro in my actual full recording for the podcast episode, but I haven't done that just yet. And I realized based on my actual script that sometimes I need to go in and do a little bit more tweaks so that it's not heavily advertisement. And this one, I had so much amazing information and fun things to share that I realize it may be a little bit too much on the heavy side of promotion. So what I'm going to do now, we just recorded that full podcast episode that went into the different sections, which is 3-part. I like to do things in threes. So that was a 3-part answering question on my topic, the power of the pause. And so, of course, because it really goes with so many other elements of what I have to provide and help people with, you'll see later on that I spoke about some of the other things that I've made available for free. And of course, you're getting a behind the scenes of how I'm doing this and creating this, and just adding a little bit more of that bonus, which I'll kind of talk about to encourage those who are listening on the traditional podcast, whether it's on Spotify or they're listening, and you'll see that I've embedded some of the places, right, where this podcast episode will be, or if they're listening on their Apple device or Android, wherever they like to listen to podcasts. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the outro, but let's go right into the actual editing. All right, so I'm going back to my software and you'll see my computer is working hard. See all of these areas right here is my computer fan going, and it's so much bigger and louder than usual. I had quite a bit of a pause as well, and that pause was as a result of me getting lost in my script because I this is my first time of me recording behind the scenes and the whole production, and I was busy doing what I normally do when I'm looking at the camera and wanting to engage and not just be looking at the screen. I lost my place. And so that's the power of doing this in advance. I can edit out those portions, and I'm going to be editing it out here in the audio portion as well. All right, so let's listen. Yeah, super loud, right? All right, so I'm going to go make it a little bit closer here. So this entire part here is going to capture the noise. So I'm doing this multiple times. Probably you would have mastered this by the time we're done. So effects, capture noise. Okay. Then click to clear that selection. And then we're going to go back and select all. Now we're going to go back to effects, noise reduction restoration, noise reduction process, and apply. It's working there. It's doing all the noise reduction for me. And you can see that it's worked when you see that that wave is completely clear. So that's the background noise that has been removed. All right, so now let's listen. It's quite long there. It's complete silence. All right, so now we are going to delete all that extra space that I had created for us to get the noise, background noise. And we are going to, there's a few areas where I know I had a long pause, not a few areas, really just right here. So that was a very long pause when I lost my space. So I'm going to go right here and I'm just going to delete. I'm going to listen because there was a portion that I know I redid. So let's listen. All right, so I'm going to stop it there. I did a lip smack and I don't like that coming through in the actual audio because it can be distracting. So I just simply selected that portion and on my keyboard, I'm hitting delete. And that will, let's listen just a little bit before. All right, so I'm not going to do the full editing live here with you because I know that this part can be a little bit just repetitive. But just so you get a gist, it's what I'm doing now is also the areas where I have heavy breathing. It picked it up and it sounds really, really heavy because I'm going to transfer this to the podcast studio sound, and everything is kind of magnified, including my voice and the breath. So right now it doesn't sound as magnified because I haven't put it into the multi-track and made it into the essential sound preset of the preset of the podcast voice. But I know because I've been doing this for so long. So right now I'm going to just select that little portion, and you don't have to remove every breath. It's really up to you. But you want to remove the things that could serve to be quite a distraction for both you and the listener, right? As the person who's producing this particular episode. So I'm just going to listen back to that part that I edited to make sure I didn't edit out the actual meat that people need to hear, because that can happen sometimes. Okay, so you see, I'm going to go back. I'm going to undo delete audio. And I realized that I probably had gotten a little bit too close. and we need to leave a little space there, right? So you can see really where the breath is, and we don't need to delete so much of a big chunk. So that's why it's good to zoom in, delete, and also replay what you've deleted to make sure you haven't deleted the experience that you're trying to give as you're listening. So that's fine. So earth, I had a chance to have that part sound more natural and go right into the next point. All right. So I'm going to pause this so that we'll get to really the ending and this won't be too long of a video. So I just wanted to come back in to share with you another thing that I think is so important when you're producing your podcast. And right here, that's why you re-listen and you make sure that even if you don't think it was that bad, you make room to get it as close to how you would like for it to be so that it's excellent, right? So when I went to this portion, I got so taken up in that scripture and that experience and speaking with you that I just did it off of memory rather than what I had written down. And I wanted to go by what I had written down to keep it very correct to what is being quoted, right? So I'm gonna play this right here and show you where I corrected myself and I was able to just go ahead and know that I'm going to edit that part and let it flow as it should. So listen. So I said they will soar on eagles, but no, we want it to, we're going to delete that part right there. So I just started back. So we're going to delete that entire thing and start with the actual quote, okay? All right, so that's good. So just wanted to show you that, and then we're going to record the outro in just a moment. All right, so I was able to complete the editing of the full episode there and just put it on stop there. So what you want to do after you've edited, we want to make sure we've saved it and it's the full that's being saved. These are all individual files. So when you save it and you go back to the session, which is over to the left, we can drop that in and we'll be dropping in the saved version with all the edits, okay? I did have to crop out a few things, which you probably remember while I was recording. There were two other times where I had to kind of retrack what I was saying and making sure that it is fully conveying correctly what it is that I've meant to say and that I created a script for. So we're going to go back to the session and that was the full. So we're going to pull that full recording and the area that was heavily, that sounded like a lot of fun ways they could connect and have their resources that I've already created and have made available to my listeners, like, you know, if you're listening on the podcast, as well as those of you who are listening directly to the behind the scenes right here. And this is actually just going to be on the video for those who wanted to see how this entire production came to be. So I'm just going to pop this in after the intro and I'm going to put it up top, which is indicating my voice there. All right, so it's right there at the line, right after he does his intro of me and the music is finished playing. So let's make sure we have a smooth transition by hearing and listening to this part going into the next part. All right, so let's press play. All right, so that's not as smooth of a transition because the music stopped abruptly. So what I normally do with the music, we can pull it up a little bit further and then we are going to select, which is usually the right click, and we can check and see here. We normally have the option to, so the option is not showing right here. So what we'll do is we keep it selected and go up top, and we want to have modulation really of going from that clip, fading it. So we go to the clip and we select fade out. Right now it has no fade. So we're fading out so that it's going to fade out based on where it's transitioning from one area to the next, right? So we'll hear that fading out happening. Let's start again. Okay, great. So now you hear kind of like that automatic sort of progression happening when you fade out from the music into the talking that's coming forth, which is my full podcast episode. Now, another thing that you'll notice is that it's still kind of low because I did not add the preset yet. So I'm selecting the actual full episode, selecting dialogue. This is from Essential Sound on the right, based on how you have your Adobe Audition set up. And then you go to dialogue, and we're going to go to podcast voice. So it's going to create that dynamic effect for me here. It's also measuring the clip loudness to make sure that it really is at the decibel it needs to be for podcast production, and quality sound. Depending on where you're listening to this, it's going to make sure it's perfectly suited for that. So let's listen one more time. All right. So we already listened to that when I was doing the editing of that, so that's fine. So now there is a portion on here that actually had a bit of the promotion. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add music to let that part be something that's going to be very joyful to listen to. I'm talking about a lot of different things. I'm not really teaching at that point. So it's really good when you can keep the attention of your listener to want to keep listening through to, let's say, kind of like a commercial, but it's not really a commercial. It's them learning about more ways really to help them as a fearless creator or as a radiant pearl, depending on which podcast they're listening in on. All right, so we are going to add that in the track 3 area, and we're going to search for that track that I want to add. All right, so we're going to wrap things up now. I've added here, and this is why it's so good to save, because sometimes tech can act up, right? And so I had to restart the program and make sure everything was as it should be in its place. So we were able to finally get this audio to come in. And what I wanted to just show you before we record the outro and just convert this into a ready file to upload as a podcast episode is we have this file with the fullness of sound, but it's going to be background music. So we just want it to go and have that effect where it's going to begin and where it's going to end. And once it's selected, you go to the right, Essential Sound. Once again, this is music, so it's going to be balanced background music. So it's going to bring it down quite a bit. And then we want to test out the sound and hearing exactly where it's going. But we know we want it to have a fade in and a fade out, since it's just kind of creating that effect, make it happy and exciting to keep listening to all the information that's being provided. And so, of course, we go to clip and then we go to fade in. So we're going to have a fade in, and then we're also going to have a fade out. So clip and then fade out and a fade out. All right. So both those areas will have that kind of seamless transitioning. So let's hear how it sounded. I just dropped it in so that it goes to the end, but it may not need to start exactly there. So let's listen. All right, wonderful. So now we've had that full completion there of this full episode. And what we're going to do is create the last one. So we're going to go to new audio file, and this is going to be the ending. So we'll say outro for episode power off the pause. All right, so creating that now, going back to my script here, and we just want this is kind of like a staple in all of our episodes, so kind of want to keep that the same, that flow and that reminder, because it takes so many times for people to hear something before they take action, right? So this is going to have the final call to actions, to make it very clear what our call to action is every single time. And then it's going to have the outro music as well, which is the Fearless Creator outro music, which we used in the intro. So I'm going to show you how we just wrap it all up, hopefully in a pretty bow, and have it ready to go. So let's go ahead and hit that record button. As we continue to share multi-generational stories that inspire, I want to invite you to tell a friend about this podcast. Tag me on Instagram or Facebook. What was your greatest takeaway from this episode when it comes to the power of the pause? Remember, we love being social and hearing from you. So connect with each other and me on Instagram at Lady Stacy's Aunt and at Radiant Pearl Living, where I personally respond and reshare your highlights of your takeaway when you tag me. You can also connect on the Radiant Pearl Living Facebook page and group. We have one for the Fearless Creator as well. Use hashtag Radiant Pearl Living Writing Well or hashtag the Fearless Creator for a chance to be featured. If you are a person who loves to see, watch, and do, we plan to bring more Crafting Live along with dynamic Fearless Creator interviews to you over on our YouTube channel. Listen to the stories of our elders, millennial mentees who've become mentors themselves as you strive to find your purpose. Delve deeper in the discussion ideas through journal questions provided in our weekly newsletter. Thank you for listening to the Radiant Pearl Living RPL Live or the Fearless Creator podcast with Stacy Zant. Do make sure you are subscribed to this podcast. Visit us at radiantpearlliving.com/the power of the pause. And I look forward to connecting with you as I encourage you to plan for a radiant life you love and equip you to fearlessly create. All right, so we completed that. You know, it's very quick. And of course, in the beginning as well as in the ending, I had the sound. Let's try the ending here. That's a bit longer. So we had the background noise. So we're going to do what we've been doing. We are going to make sure that we add that effect by capturing the noise print. All right, click so that it's removed the selection. And then we're going to go into select, and we're selecting all. And then we're going to go back to effects, and we're going to go back to that same noise reduction restoration, and we're going to do the noise reduction process and apply. All right, it says easy as that, very quick there. We're going to remove that extra area there at the front and at the end, delete. And then I'm just going to do a quick listen. It's only a minute really. So, all right. So I could get very stickler and say, you know what, I am going to redo this because I didn't like that I fumbled over millennial mentees. I mean, say that how many times and see if you can keep saying it right, right? I know these alliterations sometimes get us, but it's okay. Give ourselves grace. I'm giving myself grace. I need to get ready to go now. So with that in mind, sometimes you just need to just go ahead and let it be, because people are not looking for perfection, right? They want to be able to be blessed with your gift and what it is that you're putting out there to help them. And of course, making it as close as possible to excellence as you can get it. So we've completed that. So what we're going to do now is save it and make sure that the edited version is showing as it should. So let's make sure it's saving in the right place as well. You can always browse and see that. But we're going to go back to the session and we're going to add that ending that we just created, which is the outro. Made it very easy to spot it since I started it with outro. So we're just going to grab it and we're going to place it where we want it. And I just want to add it to the end of the last audio that I had. All right, so we're going straight in and I can go a little bit zoomed in. We can go closer if we would like to, just so we can see it better, and you can actually zoom in with this. All right, this is for the multi-track. And then I realized there's like a gap right there, so I can just, we can put it, merge it together, or I can just have it go right in at the end. I'm going to kind of merge it together since there was a dead space there. And what I'll do is I'll also bring this to that, since it really doesn't have any sound, and it was fading out. And then I'm going to add my instrumental off my original music here. And we're going to kind of merge that together as well. And since it's just the full sound, we don't want that to hinder you from hearing the message and the outro. So we're going to change that instrumental music and make it the background, balanced background music. All right, so it really does bring it down so we can listen and hear what is being stated. So let's just play that, just a little part to make sure that it's all transitioning correctly. All right. All right, so one thing I notice is that this is still a little bit too soft. And when I click it, I see that the preset needs to be added because I had to, when I paused, we had a little bit of an issue and I had to replace some of these audios. And that's the beauty of having saved these individual audios and tracks so that it'll be very easy to just drop it in its place. So back to podcast voice, and that should make it sound louder and clearer. And then if you want to actually get this clip even louder, it's already selected. Just go over to the right here. It shows the dynamics. It shows the clip volume. You can make it even louder. And that will allow this clip to actually be as, you can play around with it. All right, so that was the last part of the actual sound, the words of the outro. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and I am going to split it. All right, and the reason why I'm doing this is because I would like to do the ending. I usually like to do the very ending as to end with this. And the reason for that, so let's go back, undo move, undo split clip. All right, so I'm remembering this as I'm doing this, and we're going to zoom out so that I can see the full thing here. I'm going to go ahead and play with this even more. All right, because we went from one audio to another, and that usually makes it easier. So what I'm going to do here, you see how this is, I really want this to end because it has a nice pow at the very end. So I really want that experience and that ending to come through and for you to enjoy that climax of the ending of this song. So what I'll do here is I'm going to split it. So I went out right here. We want to start from where the outro is, which is the word dialogue, and I'm going to line it up to the music, and then I'm going to select the split option. So split, and then I'm going to select this back again, and I'm going to delete. All right, so now we're going from this other music to this ending of the I Am Fearless instrumental. And so that's going to create the effect of what I really want and that we normally have with our podcast episodes and the outro. All right. So with that in mind, we already listened to how it's supposed to be. So I'm going to zoom back in, and we're zooming back in here. All right. And let's see. Zoom out full, zoom out, zoom in. There we go. And then we're going to have, when it's ending, what I want to do is split this even further. And we're going to do split. And so right when this is ending, I want this actually, when the words have stopped speaking there, I want this part to get back loud. So I'm going to take it back from the balanced background music to default. And there we go. So we're transitioning now from the lower background music because of the speaking that's happening to now getting that full effect at the end. So let's play that, just that last ending. All right, so that's it. It's just the very, very ending that is going from, right. So if you can hear that, it's just doing fearlessly create, and that is loud. And the balanced background music is balanced to be able to hear that. And then I've magnified the last ending to hear that last boom of the, Fearless Creator song, the I Am Fearless. So that is pretty much it, right? So now we have it all done. This was all under 15 minutes. Isn't that great to be able to get, really, I would say and hope and pray, high quality messaging, as well as motivation, inspiration, and encouragement. And it be something that can pick you up and you can listen to on the go for 15 minutes or less. So that's usually really fun to create something. And yes, it took a little while, but it's worth it. And you get a hang of it. The only reason why it went so much longer than it usually does for me is because I'm demonstrating for you here today. All right. And I wanted you to be able to kind of see the full production and explain some things to you. And it's been a real one, right? Behind the scenes here today. And so what you're gonna do now to close things out, we want to always save. So I'm saving, just plainly saving, but I'm also going to export. We're going to export the whole multi-track. So that's the entire session. You go to export file, export multi-track mix down, entire session here. And then you can change the title if you want to. I gave it pretty much the name that I wanted it to have, but I'm going to remove mix down. And I do want this to be more specific to the episode. So it's going to be episode 46, the power of the pause. All right. They don't need to know that it's solo, but it's just the power of the power of the pause episode. And wherever you want to save that. So right now it's exporting the multi-track. And once it's done, it moves pretty quickly depending on all the things you have going on in the multi-track. Once it's done, you're going to have an MP3 file, which is the best formatting for you to be able to have it uploaded in all the places, depending on where you host. And that's a whole other portion, is learning about the hosting. And I always like to share my toolkit. I have the Fearless Creator Podcast Planner. All of these things break it down even further. But I just wanted to show you a quick behind the scenes of preparing, creating, editing, and then, of course, formatting in terms of the actual podcast MP3 file ready now for upload. And now we're just going to upload that file and have the show notes, which is going to be very easy. The show notes is coming from the actual script outline that I created in my Google Doc, and just having it formatted very simply and quickly in my website and host, so that you'll be able to follow along and even watch this video while you are perusing the website and the show notes and everything that I've made available with the clickable links. So it's as simple as that, right? Simplified, streamlined, if you have all that you need to get it done. So until next time, thank you for tuning in today. I'm going to go back to my previous scene here so that you're just seeing me. And I just want to thank you again for taking this time to connect. I didn't say it in the podcast episode, but just remember to subscribe as well to the channel so you can continue to get behind the scenes footage as a fearless creator, to encourage you with our production, as well as just helping you to fearlessly create, whether it's your podcast, on your blog, or if you're producing an event experience that's exceptional and that can help people to connect with the gifts that you have and you becoming profitable as you do so. You know, that's my mission, to help you to plan for a radiant life that you do love, and also equipping you with the tools, the resources, the training to fearlessly create through what we have fearlessly created for you. Until next time, be blessed.